Alright, this is a demo on how React Native is kind of coming full circle with this application where I have a WKWebView that is bridged to the React Native world. So in short, there is a lot of stuff going on here, but the WebView exec.js call is being routed through a bridged WebView component, which happens to execute JavaScript, and this is following the React Native way of doing things for the most part. The difference being I'm actually leveraging a custom wrapped WKWebView, which currently in iOS has bugs where, or limited feature set, where it can't load files off of the file system. So you kind of have to do something like inject the file with, inject the WebView with content, which is not so fun. But the reality is that it does work. It's not a lot of fun, but it gets the job done. So I actually have files that get copied over to the target device, which is this WebView files directory. And this pattern view, the HTML, actually is being loaded at one point and stringified. And once that's done, that actually tells the WebView itself to load the HTML string. Suboptimal, but gets the job done for the most part. So what's happening here is that when the player is demanded it to be rendered, the WebView will render the content. And in order to really grasp how this stuff is working, we're going to have to open up a debug window. And to do that, I'm going to just simply rerun the application. Pardon me, the phone name is a little off. Let's get this out of the way. Alright, so he's going to run the application on the simulator. As soon as that's done, I need to choose Safari. Oops, let's try that again. And there we go. Okay, so in this application is a sub-application, which is the pattern viewer. And the sub-application actually is a very, very vanilla JavaScript application where it's been developed literally to work as fast as possible by doing things like reusing data. Instead of recreating strings, we just have references to values. And so the idea was to get this to work as fast as possible. And there's this function called up, which basically is called by the WKWebView wrapper. And what he does is he basically says it's up is short for update, and then he actually will go ahead and animate the rows up and down, or excuse me, up according to the pattern. He also controls what pattern is displayed and so on. That's what we see in this HTML. So in the actual source code, we have the main element, which has a div called width holder, which is a little trick I'm using to ensure that in between pattern changes within a song that the actual scroll position is held. It's a 0 pixel height, 100% width element basically. And so when a song is loaded, I don't want to close this. Maybe I do. Oh, here's a bug. There's a bug with React Native where if you close a drawer, for some reason no button handlers get listened to. It's very strange. So let's go ahead and rerun this. And we're going to have to go to this hold. You're going to see the random viewer or the random player pop up. That's part of my debugging. So I didn't click anything there. I just had to set timeout to have that run. What you're seeing here is output basically, and I'm dynamically generating elements on the page based on the pattern order set. And what these comprise of realistically is just simply child elements which have strings for each pattern. So if I were to expand this guy, we can see that we have this row number right here. If you look to your left, I'm going to mouse over, and we're going to see that he's highlighted. And if I mouse down and up on Safari, we got the debugger. You'll see that the items kind of show and so on. Okay, so what this thing does is when a song is loaded, the pattern data is actually shipped over to the WKWebView. using this really funky function called RP. Let me pull up that function call. And it looks a little hokey, but trust me when I say this is the best way to do this right now. So I have to stringify the mod data in order to go from one JS context to another. And I end up calling the WebView's exec.js call. And basically RP is register. Geez. I forget what the whole purpose of that was. It's register pattern. That's what it was initially, is register pattern. I was shipping one pattern at a time, and realized that it made sense to just send over all of the mod data, including other file information that is required, including like the pattern orders and so on. So I ship this over, and he's actually caught by this pattern view, where ignore this line for debugging. Where he basically takes the data that's passed in and does a JSON.parse. Not the best way to do things, but it is the only way to do things. So every time a song is loaded, the data set's basically parsed, and we go through a interval of 250 milliseconds. So I render 2 patterns right away. I tell the update method to execute immediately, where I say, okay, render the first item and position at row 0. And then I say, okay, we're going to inject a second pattern into the buffer immediately, just to make sure that we have the ability to flip patterns when the song is playing, because sometimes songs sometimes have a empty pattern, and that is their intro for whatever reason, and then they jump to the second pattern. So I'm injecting that immediately into the DOM, and then I'm assuming that we can fill the buffer, that is, create these patterns dynamically every quarter second. And so far in my testing, it's worked out well. So if I go ahead and press next, we'll see that the patterns are generated, and we see some output where, sometimes in songs patterns can be duplicated within a song, and that's okay. But we only need to render out of the playlist of patterns what patterns are unique. So we are iterating over the pattern orders, and we're only rendering what's unique, and it actually works out very well. So when this update method is called, I'm applying a style. So by default, all these elements are called containers actually have patterns. Initially this was one container, and I was removing all the HTML and injecting it. Turns out this actually was way faster for rendering overall. And so I will tell a container to show by removing its hidden CSS class, and then I translate it up according to some math based on the row number, and then I take the height of the available space divided by 2, and I think I fudged the number about 7 pixels or something, to get us right in the beginning space right here. So there you go. And if I press play, the mod data is coming from the actual player, and we're updating position. And it turns out that even on the phone, this is extremely responsive. And compared to what I experienced with React Native rendering elements on native iOS elements, this process works a lot better. So yeah, there you have it. React Native kind of going full circle and using a WKWebView to render pattern data. This little guy is a sub application within a React Native application, just testing out patterns. So there you have it. Thanks for watching.